All right, let's do this. Cool. Right, automated testing made easy. If this thing works. Right, maybe need to focus on here first.
The arrows on the computer work?
There we go. Right, with Cypress IO. All right, let's start with me. This is me. I'm Sam. This is me. This is how I look on a holiday. That was last week in Portugal. Time of my life. Needed some sun. You can always follow me on these. Whoa. You can always follow me on these links. I'm not a very social person on social media, but you can always try to contact me if you like. I work for Smart Pension, and we are hiring. Much better conditions than. No, I'm joking. Right. What is Cypress? First thing I thought when I heard of it, Cypress Hill, right? Can't go wrong there. Or is it an island somewhere in Washington? Yes, there is an island in Washington called Cyprus, and it's not the Greek-like island. No. What is Cypress? Cypress IO. These slides are going way faster now. Cool. Cypress is a testing tool entirely written in JavaScript, which helps developers with automated tests for the web. It's often compared to Selenium, which is very, very different. Cool. I have worked with automated testing tools before, with a Cucumber test suite written in Ruby, with the Selenium WebDriver. And I had a whole bunch of problems with this before in the past. I'm pretty sure that most of you people already heard of Selenium, and most of you probably have worked with it as well. There were always a whole bunch of problems. Setting it up is hard. Running your test is slow. The test suite doesn't have a knowledge of states. Just to recap. Testing is just too hard. Now, many people have had the same problems I have. Many people have had these issues. And so did Brian Mann. This is Brian Mann, just to make sure. This is Brian Mann. He took it upon himself to fix this problem because he had most of these problems that many other developers had. So he actually went to the community and he asked the question to the community of developers. What are the biggest testing challenges you want to have solved? And he actually sent it out into the world and he got a lot of replies. Must be easy to use, tooling that is fast, testing across browser is painful, and so on, and so on, and so on. Right. Now, thousands and thousands of messages came back, and this is obviously a massive problem to solve. You cannot just solve it overnight. The first problem that we see here is Selenium. Selenium is a tool which was first released in 2004, so it's quite an old tool. It has been going through some optimizations over the years, and eventually it turned out into WebDriver. Now, we have this tool, yet still a lot of people struggle with this. So, the first thing that we need to think about is web evolution. The web is evolving all the time. All web applications were stateless. We had full page reloads. Now, in the old days, that was fine. That was okay. The second thing is, it used to be all synchronous. The old applications in the old days, that was fine, and everything used to be synchronous. And for these applications, Selenium was fine. Nowadays, The applications use most asynchronous code. Almost everything now is asynchronous. And our browser keeps a whole bunch of states. And the fact remains is that, well, first of all, for stateless code and synchronous code, Selenium is absolutely fine. You can use Selenium without any problems. Now, Selenium is a stateless HTTP API. So that means once we are using states, we are just lost. And this is basically impossible to test a stateful application with a stateless machine. You cannot do that. There are many hacks, and you can try to solve it, but it's basically kind of unfixable. Now, another problem is speed. Selenium is slow. No comments. That's just a fact. That's a given fact. And then my favorite of all, debugging. I was completely stunned. Now, just so everybody's aware, I'm not a QA. I have some experience with Selenium, but I was never really involved. So I didn't really go through all of these pains that much, but I heard them all around me. Now, this is quite amazing. This was, for me, the top. So, the Chrome is going to be automated by the Chrome driver. Now, the Chrome driver uses the same debugger, uses the debugger protocol. Now, your DevTools uses the same debugger protocol. So, the debugger HTTP protocol. So that means if you run your tests in Selenium, you cannot have your DevTools open. I mean, how can you write your tests, run your test, and figure out where things go wrong if you cannot have the debugger open? That just blew my mind. It's slow, we'll get there. Right, solving all these problems is not an easy task, but Brian Mann took it upon himself to leave Selenium aside and build a fully new thing from the ground up. And he wanted this to be able to work with the modern application. So for 2.5 years, he has been working really, really hard. And then after 2.5 years, he just did what he wanted to do. He created Cypress.io. Right, this was the whole speech talk. I am pretty sure that everybody wants to see what it is rather than know the history. So let's have a quick look. Let's see if this works. Of course, that's not going to work. Okay, cool. So you just go into your application. You just yarn add Cypress to your dev, or you can use npm install, and this will install the software for you. And if you look in the folder structure, it only adds your node modules, package.json, and your own.log file. Just simple application. Now we have this application. We can run Yarn. Yarn has a special command to run. Now I'm a lazy developer, so I mimicked the command. Anyway, I think I have to go press play here. When you run the application, when you run Yarn, which is in your node modules, bin Cypress open, it will actually take control of your computer and open some kind of software. And as you can see, it has a whole bunch of files in there. Now, when I opened it, it actually created a whole bunch of files for me. So now if I go to look again in the directory, now I can see there is a Cypress folder with fixtures, integration, plugin, support, and a whole bunch of tests. When I opened it the initial time, now when I was making this presentation, I had to do it a few times to record the video, and this only pops up once, so I had to do it on a different machine to get the thing. But it actually tells you it's gonna create a whole bunch of stuff for you. When you click OK, it just generates those files. That's it. It's actually pretty interesting because what it actually is, the integration test, the example is actions, aliasing, assertions, all this kind of stuff, and I was wondering what it actually is. So basically, it helps you to get started. Ooh. That was too fast. Okay, let's try this again. Cool. Structure. Better. Cool. So the default test in action. When you run the default tests, it's actually running tests on the Cypress.io website and just asserting a whole bunch of functionality on that actual website. And I'll give you a quick example of this. So I just aliased the open command. There's opening the UI. And if you click on one of the tests, I click on the actions test, it will run, will open a browser, and will actually run the test for you. So these tests are actually gonna go to the actions, to the actual URL, and it's gonna do a whole bunch of assertion for you. And it's actually going through the actual live website from Cypress, which is pretty amazing. Cool. So this was my first experience with Cypress. Now I'm gonna do a quick sales speech, not really a sales speech, but on the Cypress.io website there's a really cool video that I just want to show you what the capacity of Cypress can actually do. Now also, I do not get paid at all for this speech. I just think it's an amazing tool and I just want other people to know about this tool. So let's have a look. So this is the actual website and I hope we can get some sound.
Cypress is an open source test runner built for the modern web. It makes setup, writing, running, and recording tests much simpler, easier, and faster than ever before. Whether you're testing the various login states of your application, or complex drag and drop operations that you've seen on web apps and Trello boards, you can easily wait for dynamic content to load, or make sure things look good on mobile responsive views. With Cypress, you have much more control over your application and can write tests in a way that was not possible before today. You can programmatically control UI widgets like tree views and multi-selects, as well as waiting for the results of an autocomplete to finish. You can even stub out network requests to control how the responses are returned. This means you can easily test edge cases, such as when no results are returned, or test what happens if your server is down. As you write commands, Cypress executes them in real time, providing you with visual feedback as they run. Commands are interactive, so as we hover over them, Cypress time travels back to the application state when this command ran. When clicking on a command, we receive helpful debugging output to our console, and based on the type of command, can oftentimes interact with them. There's so much more that Cypress can do, so we hope that you'll check out our docs and getting started videos. We'll explain how to install, write your first tests, and go into much more detail about how Cypress is different from any other testing tool you've ever seen before.
Right, so that was a sales speech. I just think it's an amazing tool. Now, that was my impression, is it? But now the question is it really that awesome? Yeah, I went too fast, but yes, it is. It is actually amazing. When I first saw this this software popping up, I actually sneaked it into our code base without anybody knowing and made it available to a few people. Now we have a new engineering manager who is a bit annoyed that this got into the code base because people like it a lot and people are like, oh, can we please use this? Can we use it? Obviously, we have this massive repository and we do automatic deployment. So that also means once we run our tests or once you add tests to your repository, you're potentially doing deployment. Now, with Cypress, that's not needed. So what I did this week, literally this week, I created a new repository, moved all the tests to a different repository, and anybody can write tests wherever they want, because this is not inside your application. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Now, what I like the most about Cypress is that it's completely written in JavaScript. I don't have to learn a new language. I know JavaScript already. Plus, it's very self-explanatory, and it's using tools that we already know. So Cypress bundles the popular chai assertions, as you can see here. So we have BDD assertions, expect name not to not equal Jane, very simple. We have TDD assertion, assert is okay, everything is okay. There is the chai jQuery plugin, which comes by default. And we have the Synon chai as well. On top of that, chai allows you to customize it. So you can write your own testing ways inside there. It's just extremely easy. Right, so I have, in a previous talk, created a static page. It was a static blog. And obviously it's an Ember meetup, so I wanted to at least have something about Ember to talk to. So what I've done is I have taken that PR and I actually integrated my Cypress, and I created some tests. And I just want to show you these tests running and just a quick explanation what we are doing there. So this is my Ember static site. I'm just going to run Ember. So in this case, I need to start my server because I'm going to test them on my local host, which is absolutely fine. You could potentially swap it out for a real URL. As you saw in the video, it will just load it from there. In the meantime, I'm going to open Cypress. My laptop is running on full power because of recording, I think. Right, so here we go. We have the Ember static site. And I created a happy path spec. This will open my browser. We'll visit my URL. And it will do a whole bunch of assertions on my static blog. Yeah, so the streaming is a bit slow, I think. But basically what it's doing is it's clicking on certain buttons, asserting if all the elements in the page have to be are there. If not, it will give us an error. And this is the last one to contact me. It will fill in the form. This is, by the way, not my real telephone number. There are also a few, I mean, this tool is amazing. This tool is so big, you can do so many things with it. You can have a slow typing, you can do a copy paste, you can speed it up as much as you want, you can have the real behavior, so you can test your debouncers, all of this kind of stuff is there as well. So what I like the most about this software is, what you guys did not see in the beginning, so it's still running for the last test. Cannot show snapshot while running test. So what you can do is you can go back in time at this point and it takes snapshots of everything it done. You can see what happened, and you can open your debugger, you can open your console, you can see everything what's happening there. My computer, I think, is frying up. So this is normally going much faster and better.
Question from the audience?
Any questions?
Yeah. Does it work with library load? So you're on like the Ember server there. So if you're like trying to fix a bug in your other window, it library loads. Can you like then restart the test?
Yes. So you can restart the test on just here. Here. So the page will fail because I did not implement a callback for my form. So I just want to show you as well. If it has failed, it will tell you exactly where it failed and how it failed. The reload works there. This is also connected up with live reload. So if I am writing my test, if I change anything in my test file, it will automatically reload the test suite as well. You can run tests step by step. Now the most amazing part is that you can actually go back and see what it's doing. And what you probably have not noticed is at some point I tested the responsiveness of this thing. So I visit the URL and I change the viewport and I do a whole bunch of assertions on that viewport. I'm basically looking for the menu bar here. So this tool is so big, it's fast, it's easy to use, it runs on almost every machine. It has its own built-in CLI. It has its own hosting service, and most of all, best of all, it's completely free. It's open source. So if you want to download this and write all your tests yourself, you can run it locally, you can run it on your own server, you can run it basically on any CI, or you can use the CI from Cypress themselves. They host it for you, they have a whole platform, you can run tests there, and that's where the pricing comes in. So you can pay for it if you're really interested in and you really want to host this completely following their rules, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just run it locally. Right, going back. Cool, so if you want to see some resources, I stole most of this talk from a video I saw on YouTube. I'm not gonna lie about that, but hey, at least now you guys know about it. So yeah, do check these out. I'm not saying that Selenium is the worst thing in the world, but do have a look out for this software. So thank you very much, and we are still hiring.
One thing I thought I missed, I see that it bundles Chai as a section library, but what do the tests themselves, what do the structure of the tests, like, describe it and the sort of stuff, what the runner, what Mocha normally provides looks like?
I can show you the test that I written. So again, I'm not an expert in let me zoom a little bit. I'm not an expert in writing tests.
I'm sure, yeah, okay.
Definitely not.
So that context before each and all that, is that Mocha or is that its own thing?
I am not 100% sure. Let me close this.
Or maybe we can have a quick look at the package JSON to see if it mentions Mocha, and if not, then maybe it may very well be the Cypress.
Yeah, that's Mocha.
It looks like Mocha, doesn't it?
Context is a Mocha helper? Never heard of it.
It doesn't seem
It
to.
doesn't say Mocha.
No, but it could be a dependency.
But what's the other one that looks like Mocha but is not Mocha? The one that has some T name. T as in, drink. Jasmine. Jasmine also looks like Mocha. There are a couple of words that are different, and that's where you can tell them apart. But maybe Cypress has its own something. I don't know.
So yeah, for me, this just looks very readable. I can see exactly what's going on. It has the possibility to check CSS if you like. It has so many ways of getting your test there. Everybody can read it. Well, most people can read it. It's very easy to use. So I am sold. I am completely sold for this one.
Cool.
Have you got any async stuff in there?
No, not in here.
It is possible, right?
It is possible, and by default it is doing async, so it will wait for each test to have run. So it's basically like, just the async stuff that we are all used to. So every assertion it will run after the first one is done. It has a certain timeout as well. If it cannot find an element on a page, which is I think defaulting to few seconds. If it can't find it, it will throw an error, but you can also increase that without having to put in sleeps or waits or anything like this.
So you showed it running on the browser. I imagine you can just open the same URL on any kind of browser and does it run, like say you wanted to test Firefox.
Yes, it has Firefox integrations. Unfortunately not yet with Internet Explorer, but I believe the team is working on integrations with BrowserStack right now. So if this will be available in BrowserStack one day, that would be heaven.
And can you have it also run as headless, like on a Lambda function or something?
Yes, you can. So you can just integrate it in your CI. You don't need an actual browser to do all this testing.
So you say that when it's looking for an element, so that it doesn't time out, you cannot, you can ask it to wait longer?
No, so there's a default timeout, but if you know that your application is slow and you want to test something in real life, as long as your server doesn't time out, you can say if your server timeout is, I don't know, a minute, you can change it here to a minute as well. So it wouldn't give you an error sooner than the timeout would have been from the server.
So you have a situation where you want to run your full test suite, but another situation is you're actually developing the test to, like say, this is what I'm working on now, just watch this particular test or whatever I'm running now.
Yeah.
So does it watch that as well and rerun it automatically? Like rerun the test that you...
No, so yes, so if I'm only running this test and I change anything in here, it will run the test again, yes. But it will also run the test again if I change anything in this file. So it's not scoped to the exact it.
So does that mean that you're not using acceptance testing for Ember CLI and you're using Cypress?
In our company?
Yeah.
Right now we are working on a test suite. We had some setbacks because we used to use Cucumber in Rails, and that test suite took more than 2 hours to run, and that was just a single happy path. And it was just such a pain, so we deleted that whole testing suite and we started testing API and front end separately. But that's not a end-to-end test, because if there's a mismatch with your with your API calls or with anything else there, some environment variables, which you will only realize after a deployment. So currently we are I had a discussion today with the QA manager. From next week we're going to set up a plan to test at least a very simple smoke test happy path that will run in our CI. And on the side we will also write a whole bunch of kind of regression tests which any QA can use. So if we do an upgrade for Rails or Ember, we can use that test suite. It doesn't have to go through UI, it doesn't run on every commit or every deployment, but we can run it locally to help the QAs with their job, to not having to do everything manually all the time. Now this is a tool that will not replace manual QAing. You can do a lot, but you cannot cover everything. You sometimes will have to need somebody to go in your application and just click around and do sanity checks, because it is a good tool, but it is still going to take hours to test every single test scenario. You will just not be able to do that.
I mean, there's also another part where you can actually use the same tool for kind of uptime usage as well. If you have it running every whatever.
Yeah.
If your test runs within 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you have it running every minute. And you can always check your happy path, I guess.
Yes, and we were also thinking, but we don't know what the conclusion will be. We were thinking to not run a bigger suite on every deployment, but imagine that we have a regression test suite to run it every night at 2 in the morning, something like this. At least in the morning when we come in, we know if something has failed, and that's probably before the users actually catch it. But that's something that we still have to decide in the company. So. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I always think